Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Well, welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. We are moving through November. And quite honestly, usually I'm like thinking about all the things that I'm grateful for in November. And I think that just it did not happen here on the podcast, but I think it just slid under my radar because so much has happened in November or since a lot. So it just feels like a whole year has happened, even though it's still within a month. You feel me? Perhaps you do. With that said, we have 1 week to go before Thanksgiving. Or at least this will be airing 1 week before Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is really my favorite holiday. And it's my favorite holiday for a lot of reasons. I think because it isn't as commercialized as other holidays, but people really genuinely are so grateful. People come together and do Friendsgiving. You have an opportunity to just relax, and people generally are just more filled with gratitude. And there's good food. So it's a win-win. It's good food, good people, good vibes, all the good things. With that said, of course, I'm always thoughtful about guests that I get to bring to you. And this young lady, I had the opportunity to meet at a Juneteenth race. The Juneteenth Marathon in DC is becoming one of the iconic races around Juneteenth. Freddie, my classmate, shout out to him, another just awesome guy. But I had this thought during the pandemic to do a race around the city. It started as doing it like around the city, this marathon. And then it's now a half marathon trail race and a 10K. This year was the first year we did the 10K at Fort Stanton Park, or starting from Fort Stanton Park and going through the Civil War Memorial Trail in like through the Anacostia, Southeast DC. I might have that wrong, but it's going through the trail. And I was reminded today of how I met this young lady. And it was because I was like, so you're just about to run with nothing, like no water, no anything, just running. And I'm like, when you think about working out, you want to make sure you have your water, your hydration, because it's summertime in DC, and summertime in DC can get really, really hot. Well, little did I know, fast forward to this year, 2024 at the Juneteenth race, we happen to be talking about triathlon. And she was like, she's going to do one. And I said, okay, well, we need to talk when you do. Obviously, it happened early in the year, but here we go. I love her Instagram name because her Instagram name speaks volumes about who she is. This young lady does a lot, from being an attorney, an avid runner, leader of, I feel like, a run group, Riot Squad in Baltimore. But she's just always on the go, but has such humility about herself. Of course, her name would be Humble Hustler. Isn't that cute? Humble Hustler. Well, with that said, I get to bring into this audience Miss Koryn High. Koryn, welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing good. I'm
Good.
finally finished with race season, so it's a little bit of downtime for a change.
Oh, let's talk about it. So we're finished race season. What race
hmm
did you just recently do?
So this past weekend, I participated with a couple of people from Riot Squad in Every Woman's Marathon. It's their inaugural run of it in Savannah, Georgia, and had a great time. Like went down Thursday. The race was on a Saturday, and then came back on Sunday. So that was the last race that I had signed up for the year, and I was lucky enough to get down there with the people that I run with here in Baltimore, but also people I know from DC, from New York, from all the other races and, all the other experiences that we've all had together. So it was a
There
good time.
there was a lot of people from this area down there. I was like,
Yeah.
but why wouldn't they be racing? It's an inaugural event for an amazing, well, I'm saying amazing race, but I would say amazing cause of allowing women to be able to run of all shapes and sizes, speeds,
Mhm.
different levels. What was it like being down there? For those who might not
So,
know about the race.
right. So it was interesting because I started the year being like, this year I'm not running any marathons. And I think everybody looked at me and laughed because they were like, there's no way. But it was a really good vibe. Like everybody's just there. Everybody wanted everybody, you could see people like pushing each other along. And the course, very beautiful, went through Savannah State University. They had the bands out. It was so nice. Like that part, I always film. I don't really film a lot while I'm running. But whenever the bands come out, the percussion just gets me. So I was filming the different parts of that, but we did a lot of out and backs. So you were passing by your fellow runners and everybody's like very encouraging of each other, pushing each other. Like, even though I think I was passing like the 4 hour time group who are like really trying to kill it. And they're like, yeah, yeah, they're going, but they still have time to stop and be like, yeah, ladies, you got it. You got it. So they were super encouraging. And it was just a good vibe after too, like getting to just chill and connect. Savannah is beautiful. I really wish I had more time to be down there and just explore, but I didn't want to. I was trying to like be responsible on Friday before the race and not walk too much and not be out too long. And then Saturday when we got done, I'm like, a little sore. So I mean, we ended up walking around, and then we went to one of the girls. Her family was down there, and I kept telling her family members, I was like, this is like college, because her family invited us over. They made food for us. We ate. It was, oh, it was like home cooked meal after not eating home cooked food for like 3 days. And the Southern hospitality was just insane. So great. And then we came out and we kind of walked around a little bit of downtown Savannah, but I was tired, so then I went to bed.
Yeah, Savannah is a vibe. It's always been a vibe. I'm from Georgia, and that's always like going to Savannah is like just the thing to do, especially when you just want to be around the beauty, the trees. I mean, seeing the moss hang from the trees and the trees that cover the streets, the row, not necessarily row homes, but the downtown area is just really nice. I don't know what they're called. They're
Hmm.
not row homes, but they're like
I don't know either, but it's
not
funny.
mini mansions. They're like mini mansions. Like as a Girl Scout, we used to always go there to the Juliet Low house. It was just one of those things. And so I'm glad that you got to experience Savannah.
I one of the girls that I stayed with, she's also from Georgia, and she was just like, I didn't know that Savannah was like this. She was like, I don't think she had ever been, but she also said it reminded her a lot of New Orleans because she had been to New Orleans a lot. And so have I. And I was just like, yes, definitely has that vibe, has that feel, very comfortable. We were walking around Saturday night, like, oh, we weren't tired. We'd go out and go harder. But, we had a really good time. We were all talking about coming back just for fun and not necessarily for the race. Although the race is um going to come back for a second year. So and it really featured a lot of first time runners. So I'm hoping that that trend continues, that they continue to have a lot of first time runners because it was a great course for an introduction to 26.2.
I love it. So they're coming back for a second year. They've already announced it. There were a lot of first time runners. I saw a lot of people on social media who had been training and leading up to the big day, and they were
Hmm.
filming throughout the race, and they were able to finish their first marathon, which is good. Like being able to do your first marathon in a very safe environment makes, I think, a difference in whether in how your run career goes. Like your first race, your first time, it really always sets the precedent for future races to come. Would you
Hmm.
agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
So,
think my first marathon was Marine Corps, and that one was a good one. I was super nervous, really, really scared, but being kind of close to home and like eventually getting to cheer squad at mile 20 something, it was like, yeah, this was great. Like this was it was a good vibe. It was a good look. But when I finished, I was like, I could have gone harder. Like it's the way my mind is wired. I was just like, I wasn't sore enough. I wasn't hurt enough. I didn't like, I took a shower after and felt great. And I was just like, are you supposed to feel this? Like, I should have gone harder. And that's what made me sign up for another one.
or was that because you trained?
I don't think I trained well enough. I
Really?
printed out you don't know what you're doing. I had a run group, but I think at the time our run group was really small. This was like 2018. It was a lot smaller, and a lot of us had, done half marathons. We'd actually done a half marathon together as a group. We did the Baltimore half, but not a lot of people have been talking about marathons. So, um I said to myself, I was like, if you're really going to train for something, you have to like pick a marathon. So I did, but all I did was like print a training plan off of Google or something and tried to follow it, but did really, I have to be honest, it was like 50-50 following it. And I felt it 100% by like mile 17. But then, getting done with it, I was like, yeah, I'm sore, but I still could have gone harder. Like in my mind, I was just like, yeah, you could do better. You can do better than that. So that's what I did.
Well, cool. We share that in common. Marine Corps was my first marathon as well in 2015.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and well, that was my first standalone marathon. Let me be clear, first standalone marathon. And yeah, you're right. It's a different experience, but getting to mile 20, which is the beat the bridge, that's a whole different, experience and seeing, people making sure they get that. Because I'm more of a bag as a packer. And so that's always a very interesting mile number for that particular race. Well, speaking
Yeah.
about training, this is Try Beginner's Luck. So let's
Hmm.
see how you've tried beginner's luck. Tell us about how did you even come to do triathlons and learn about triathlons for that matter?
I first learned about triathlons in general in 2007. I was living in Okinawa, Japan. I was teaching abroad for in between college. Like I graduated college, didn't really know if I wanted to go straight into law school. And then also I had worked with kids after school. So I was like, maybe I want to be a teacher and I just don't know. And the JET program at the time gave me like really good space to figure out like, do I really like teaching? Do I want to go back to the States and try to teach? Do I want to stay here and try to teach? Um, or do I just want to go back and go to law school like, was the original plan? So other people who were participating in the JET program, they were all really healthy. And I mean, I should say this, the JET program is from everywhere. So I had friends that were in the city with me that were from Canada, New Zealand, Australia, some from the States. And a lot of them were like super health nuts and like, oh, yeah, we're going to run this race. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. So all of my friends, all of a sudden, by like the second year, fell into we're going to do triathlons and Ironmans and this. And I was like, what is an Ironman? What are y'all talking about? Um, and by the third year was the third year of my contract. And I was just like, yeah, I think I'm ready to go home now. I've decided I'm going to go to law school. And my friends were like, well, come and do this triathlon with us. And I was like, have you talked to me? Do you know me? Like, I don't have a bike. I don't, where do y'all go swimming? Where do you swim for these triathlons? I asked like very minimal questions. They were just like, just sign up and do it. And I said, okay. I got like a regular mountain bike, like a regular, I'm very short. So I got like one of those 24, 26-inch Huffy bikes and was riding around my neighborhood, thought that was good enough. I knew how to run like 5Ks, 10Ks at that point. I had done those before. And the swim, I only practiced swimming like twice. So we go out there. We had to travel from mainland Okinawa to a tiny island, Ishigaki, and the amateurs go first. They have to go first thing in the morning. The pros went in the afternoon. So that's why you had to be on a super tight time schedule. I didn't know what I was doing. They were just like, yeah, buy. My friend told me which wetsuit to buy. I was like, cool. Checked my bike in. The guy was so funny. When he saw my bike, he was just like, oh, because he just knew. He was like, you're gonna have a hard time. Um, but we start the swim and it was supposed to be an hour. Like you only had an hour to do the length of the swim. And I finished in an hour and 5 minutes. And I remember it because I was like, oh, they're gonna cut me off. I'm so mad. And they were like, go, go, go. I was like, oh, I have to keep going. Cool. So so then I just ran to the bike and then I got on the bike and the bike part was 40K, but it was like the middle part of that, like 20K of it was uphill and downhill. And I was completely done. But by 31K, I was like, yes, I'm back down on solid ground. Like we were off the mountain, off the hills, and all I had to do was go flat. And they cut me off for time because they were like, you won't have enough time to finish. And I was I didn't realize how much that was going to hurt my feelings until they cut me off. And then I was just like, no, I didn't get to finish with all my friends and we have a picture together and I love that picture, but everybody else has medals and they were just but my friends were like, "Oh, we're so proud of you for even jumping out here and doing it." But I was like, I want to do one. But I came back to the States and went to law school, and there was no triathlon while I was in law school. Um, and I moved to Baltimore maybe a couple years after law school for work, and I kind of forgot about it until 2023. My coworker, actually my supervisor, he's a triathlete, and he rides his bike to work all the time, and he was telling me about Diamond in the Rough, and that's in Maryland. He's done it several times before. He was like, "Well, if you want to sign up for one, that's a good one." And I was like, "Huh, maybe." I was like, "It's time for a little redemption." So I signed up for it. And then I had kind of a flip medical thing happen in 2023. So I deferred to this year. And I, beginning of the year, was just like, you're taking it seriously. You are going to train, no excuses. I got a swim coach for a couple months and I was on the bike indoors in the wintertime. I bought a proper road bike. I was just like, you're going to do this the right way this time. But I did sprint instead of Olympic because I was easing myself back in. And and it was also my birthday weekend. So that was like another thing that just seemed to work out together. It fit exactly with how I do my birthdays. So I was like, yeah, this is how that works. So got it done.
Wow, what a good story. I think uh, I'm taken back a little bit because oftentimes we say, or at least I say here at Try Beginners, like whenever you try, you always win. And I
Mhm.
still believe that. I do. And hearing that your first race, you were cut off, there was so much to learn. And win does mean to learn and to grow and to develop. And winning is personal. And I've
Mhm.
had that experience more recently. But I admire that you gave yourself the space and the time and was like, okay, I'm going to come back to it. And you did it. And this time it
Mhm.
was wrapped around your birthday and you started at a sprint. So kudos to you because oftentimes people, if they haven't experienced, because wow, we talked about this about your first and how it starts and it helps set the precedent for your future races. And sometimes people will do something and not feel like they've succeeded and won't continue to try again.
Yeah. Um, I will say for me, I think I thought about it like I'm gonna do one as soon as I get back to the States,
Mm-hmm.
and went to law school and was like, oh no, like this
Mm-hmm.
is hard. Like being a student again after 3 years was hard enough. And then just trying to keep my head above water, I really wasn't working out at all. So I was like, oh, and I think I also I tried to look up where's a local race, like a local triathlon that I could do it. And they had one, but they were like, oh, you have to swim in the Potomac. And there was something about that. And I didn't know DC very well, but I was like, there was something about that that I was like, I don't think I want to do that. I'm not ready. don't wanna, I don't wanna. And in my head, I just kept going, I don't wanna. And I told a couple of friends of mine at law school, and I told one of my mentors, and they were like, you don't have time for that. Like, stop. You have to be a student right now. And I think it's also important when people kind of help you like focus on what you're supposed to focus on. And triathlon wasn't going anywhere. Like, it was only going to grow as a sport. I knew that there were plenty around. I kept looking them up. So I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And oddly enough, I got into running first and running distance first, that I didn't anticipate like doing that. But it came at a great time. And then I've been doing a lot of running races, but this was going back to the triathlon was like a really good, like, oh, this is what they mean by cross training. This is what you mean by like, oh, this is intense, but it didn't hurt as much. And I was like, as I was training for this triathlon this year, I was like, why do people run when they can bike? Why do people run when they can swim? Like, I still got my heart rate up, my calories are burning, and my feet don't hurt. And I was just like, "Ooh, maybe this is the new move." Um, until I took my bike outside. And then I was like, oh, this is why people run. I'm never more anxious than I am on a bike. It's just, it's a thing. It's a thing. I'm going to figure it out, but it has become the thing. I love biking, and I love how like fast I can go and the distance I can cover in a shorter amount of time. But my heart is racing so much every single time I'm on a bike. So,
Yeah, it's a different feel. I want to just to give people reference. Your
mhm.
first race was 2007.
Yes.
The second one was 2024.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the point that I was trying to make, is that the
Oh.
distance between, because most people
Mm-hmm.
would have just said, I'm done. I'm moving on with life. But you came
Hmm.
back to it. And so that's what I wanted to give you the kudos for, is
Oh, I
that
appreciate that.
distance, that you didn't forget about this beautiful sport called triathlon that has its highs and its lows, right? But you also discovered why most people do triathlons. Like, if you could, why would you run when you can bike? Why would you run when you can swim? Or why don't you just do all three and have a whole party with it?
Hmm.
Now, heart racing and riding your bike outside, it's a real thing, especially when you live in the city.
Yeah.
The anxiety of it all is really high, per se.
Hmm.
The trails are a little different in the city, so you don't have as much access to trails. And I can see that. But when you were on that bike trainer, you were happy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but I will say this. I had an inflated sense of what it meant to ride a bike by training in the wintertime on like an indoor bike, because I thought I was setting like the tension high enough, right? Where my legs are starting to hurt, like pushing the pedals and all that. But then it got easier and I was doing like 20 miles in an hour. And then I got my actual road bike, take it outside, and I'm like, oh, this is totally different. Like, there is no comparison. Like, my gym has a bike, and even if I went to spin class, I went to a spin class at one point. I also just came in and I would try to do a brick workout where I did swim on the indoor, like an indoor swim, and then come right out and get on the bike, or then I would bike and then I'd run on the treadmill. Um, and the biking part, I was just like, I'm flying through it. And as soon as the weather got nice and I took my bike out, I was like, oh, these aren't the same hills. What I thought I was putting hills on. Like I put a hill workout on the exercise bike, and that's not the same as Baltimore hills. It has no comparison. But I but I like that because the challenge, it's like it represented itself at the end of the winter season. Was like, okay, you've kind of prepped, you've trained yourself, you started lifting, whatever. Now you got to take it outside. And I had to do well, I did a practice open swim.
Mhm.
It it was kind of wild because I didn't practice open swim in 2007. I just went out there and did it. And then all these years later, I was like, no, I should practice. This is like, I'm really giving it everything I've got and I'm really trying. So I'm going to go practice. But the practice actually made me more nervous and more like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Instead of it making me feel easier or like more at ease, it made me feel like, oh, this is really, I had to try to put myself in the mindset and think back, like, you just got out there and just jumped in water like 17 years ago. Now you're just like thinking about every little thing that can go wrong. But it's just interesting the way your perspective changes and how I was like, I felt like I was taking it more seriously, but also that kind of put the pressure on, especially in the swim part. Not so much the bike and everything else, but the swim was pretty much the more technical and the more difficult for me, I think, this go around.
Yeah, and every swim will present its different challenges. Like I feel like no, there's no two triathlon races that are the same.
Mm.
Just not. Even it could be the same race, but different race conditions, race everything. And you're 17 years older. So different things impact you a little differently. You know what I'm saying? When you fresh out of college, you fancy free. Ain't nothing worries.
I had no thought. Like there wasn't even there was no thought. Like I was just like, oh, you know how to swim, just go. And I got kicked in the head quite a bit in that first one in Japan because I didn't know how to sight. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to like look out for other people. I was I was definitely at the back of the pack. I was at the end, but eventually, but when we all took off into the off the pier, it was like, oh crap, I'm like in it. This time I jump in and I was just like, oh, leave me alone. Like I wanted to avoid everybody. As soon as I got scared, I flipped on my back and I backstroked to a lifeguard and like kept doing that just to finish, like just to get around it, just to finish. And I finished it. And even now, like a few months later, when people ask, "Oh, you did a triathlon?" And I was like, "Yeah, I feel like I kind of punked out on the swim." And they're like, "What do you mean? Did you not finish it?" And I was like, "No, I finished the swim. I just did like 90% backstroke." And they were like, "But you still swam." And I said, "Yeah, I
Exactly.
did. I got it done. I just wanted to do the freestyle. I wanted to like push myself the way I did before. But it'll come with time. Like I can't wait to do another one so that I can like train again, push myself again." So
Absolutely. I love what I just heard. I can't wait until I get to train again, push myself again, and do this again. So, when will your next triathlon be?
Next July.
So, are we doing this only in July?
I don't know. I was thinking about it and I was just like, maybe it needs to be my like midsummer, like my thing, because usually at the end of by this time, like I've finished my race season, but I try to pre-plan my race calendar for the next year. I learned the hard way in 2017 when I got back into running that signing up for things at the last minute gets really expensive. So, like for the
Say that one
travel,
more
for
time.
the signing up for things at the last minute is really expensive. I signed up for like 4 or 5 running races in 2017, like maybe 2 weeks before. So I was paying like the last minute entry price, and it was way more expensive than anybody who had paid for it like 2 months prior. So now at the end, like November, December is when I plan what I'm going to do the following year. And one of the I actually was supposed to do 2 triathlons this year. One was the one I did, Diamond in the Rough, in Perryville, Maryland. The other was supposed to be in North Carolina, but it got canceled because of Hurricane Helene. So, and that one was supposed to be a relay. So I kind of roped in some coworkers. One is an avid biker. The other one used to be a diver, and I'm the runner of the crew. So we were going to do it. Um, then we started talking about switching up the order, and I was going to do the swim, and the diver was going to do the run. Didn't ultimately, we couldn't get it together, and then the hurricane came in and canceled it anyway. So I have an extra entry. So I was like, let me see where I can do it. There's a couple that are in Virginia. Um, but I'm trying to figure out the rest of my race calendar, but the two that intrigued me the most were close to Charlottesville, Virginia and Williamsburg, and only because the transportation of my bike. Like I didn't spend a I spend a lot on it for me. I know bikes. I was so floored. That was probably the other thing about triathlon and this space that I was not prepared for was how expensive and how much you can spend just on the bike alone, not the accessories, not the add-ons, not the training, just the bike. So now that I have one, it's my baby. And like it is taken care of, it is pampered, it has its own bag, it has its own space in my house. Like I'm not playing games. Um I don't even want to travel with it like on a rack outside of my car. So when I rode with it, I did a bike race after the triathlon like a couple weeks later this year. I just rented a car and put it in the bike bag in the car because I was like, nothing is happening to this bike. Um, so that's also a thing about where I can do triathlons is where can I transport my bike to? So so it might end up being a July thing. It might end up being just wherever I can transport my bike to is my answer.
Here for it. I just was gonna be like, why wait until to July? We got April, May, June.
I mean, so one of actually, funny enough, one of the women that I met in London, her name is Doc, Doc
Doc
Golden.
Golden. I love Doc.
Yes,
Hey Doc.
I love Doc. I met Doc in 2022 in London, and she was a pacer for the London Marathon, and we met after the London Marathon, but she actually was the pacer this weekend for Every Woman's. Um, she and I were talking, and she's just like, "Oh, we need to do another race together." And I want to do a try with her, but I'm also like, "Whew, she is amazing." And I love like she posts a lot about her team Empire Try and all of that. And I was just like, man, if I always say to her, I'm like, oh, I wish I could train up there with you guys or like do your open swim clinics and stuff, because they look like they're having a great time, but also like it's really intense. Um, but yes, so I was like, oh, maybe I could do one up in New York or New Jersey where she is, but I didn't think it all the way through. And then I had friends who did, what is it called? I'm blanking, Eagle Man, 70.3, the
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man. I was tracking them just to see, like, they did it as a relay. It was three of them. I tracked them, and so now my phone and the algorithm believe that I'm going to do Eagle Man next year. So it keeps telling me like early bird registration. Now it's at general registration. I'm like, no, and thank you. Not yet. But I'm sure I'm sure that I could be convinced to train to get to to at least a half Ironman. The full, I've actually watched people do the full Ironman, the Ironman Maryland. Love that for them. We'll see. That's
Yeah.
where I'll leave it. We'll leave.
I wasn't even trying to get you to do a half or a full. I was just like, when you gonna try again? Like,
Yeah,
try again. But
and
I love that you have some aspirations, and I love that the algorithm is planting some seeds in your heart for the future, because you do sometimes get hit with a bug. And even though you're more on the runner side, um,
mhm,
I'm glad that Doc is a pacer because she loves pacing. Like running is her thing. She travels to run, like runs to
mhm.
travel so that she can see different places. So I can just see this for you ultimately and making that happen and making that connection. So being a runner and being primarily in the running space and making your way over to the tri space, because they're
Yes.
very different spaces for a multitude of reasons. How would you, doing your first race, perhaps encourage some of your runner friends to maybe come on over to the other side?
Um, I think it's I think even in my training this year, my conversations with most people, they're like, "You're doing a try." Oh. And I was just like, actually, it really does provide, I think I said it earlier, the cross training that I normally don't do. Like my marathon training, I mean, I have a full-time job, so I don't really have the space to just be like, oh, I can do whatever I want whenever I want. A lot of marathon training really does narrow down my schedule and like keep me on a schedule. But with triathlon train, so I'm usually like running, I can barely fit in like lifting and strength training and recovery and all the things that you need to do. Whereas when I started doing triathlon training, it was like, okay, I have certain days that I'm swimming, certain days that I'm biking, certain days that I'm running. And each of those swims, each of the biking days helped my legs, helped my muscles just kind of recover from the hard running days. So when I would talk to people at the run group, like we'd go out on Sundays and that was kind of my recovery run or a chill run. And they're like, well, how's the training going? I'm like, actually, the swim helps so much with my running because it helps a lot with me regulating my breathing. And biking really helps get my legs going. And so whenever I do a brick workout of biking and then running, I feel so much better running. So I kind of was trying to plant seeds with my team to be like, y'all come out with me, come out with me. And they're like, nah, nah. I think everybody's a little hesitant. Most people that are hesitant are more hesitant about the swim. Um, but I I would say that's the way I would encourage somebody, especially somebody who is primarily a runner, not just a runner, but primarily a runner, the swim and the bike and competing with yourself on those other individual like sports really does help your running so much more, and it trains your body in a helpful way for running, but in a different way for just your overall health. Um, but it is I think it's not easy to visualize that when you're starting it. You just think of like, oh, I have to learn three different sports. And it's like, no, just think of it as cross training. And when you cross train, you're getting better all the way around.
I love that philosophy. I want to go back to race planning because I think this is the perfect season to start considering planning what you want to do for 2025.
Hmm.
And that November timeframe is when a lot of the deals go in, and you kind of hit me where it hurts because I'm not a planner when it comes to races. I just kind
Hmm.
of be like, okay, well, I will have like maybe one race that I know I want to do, but then the other ones just kind of will pop up depending on what my announcing schedule is or just work. And when you said, yeah, having to pay more money for races, I was like, yep, that's a real thing. So, for those of you who are listening and you're trying to figure out, well, what is it that I want to do? If you know you want to do some races, you can go to USAtriathlons.org webpage to find races in your area all across the United States that will help you to plan out your season or at least identify races that you want to race. And once you do that, then you can kind of come back because a lot of race directors, especially the smaller races, when it's in like the first couple of months, they're always offering discounts. And of course,
Mm.
I always want y'all to try on a budget. So get in while you fit in while the rate is a little low. So you can save some coin because with triathlon, you're not only thinking about the race fee and entry fees, but you're thinking about travel, hotel, making sure you can get your bike there. So there's other expenses that sometimes you're not thinking about it, which kind of elevates the cost of the sport, and you have to take out all those things into consideration. So the earlier you plan, the better it is for your pockets and for your mental health a little bit, because at least you know what races you can do. And if the races don't turn out the way you would hope or want them to, you get an opportunity to try again and reconfigure. And I think you've said this too, you get an opportunity to work on different sections. Like the first part of your season, you may want to work on the swim. The second part, you may want to focus more on the bike. And the latter part, depending on maybe a run focused improvement. But there's always ways that you can improve and learn. And so I just wanted to identify that there are ways that you can kind of race plan. And if you want to go ahead and do that, check your local races.
Mm.
Races, there just are a lot of options now in November where you will pay a lot less than you would say even in March or even in say next September, depending on the race that you're looking to participate in. So y'all get onto that. You also said another thing that I want to zone in on for those who might be listening, and that's the bike and biking indoors versus outdoors.
Hmm.
Indoor cycling, depending on what type of trainer you have, can be sometimes strictly conditioning. And that's all that it's doing is strictly conditioning. So if you're going to a spin class is designed for strengthening, like conditioning. Like you will get stronger because you can do the resistance, but it's mainly to condition your heart and to get you the cardio and to simulate the motions. Now, bike trainers, depending on the type of bike training you have, can do the same thing, or there's programs that you can connect to your computer so that you can have more of a simulated outdoor experience
Hmm.
or a workout, depending on the type of program that you use. So if you have a bike trainer, a wheel lawn trainer, that will give you a different experience than a direct drive train or direct train. Did I say that right? Direct train, direct
Hmm.
train trainer. So there's different ways that you can elevate your indoor experience, but nothing beats the outdoor feel of the road and being able to work on your bike handling skills, which is also very important. So just know if you're going to bike indoors, if you're newer to sport, you're going to want to have some time outdoors as well. So thank you for highlighting that, because I think that that's really going to be helpful for someone who wants to ride in the winter but don't want to go out, because I have a threshold. If it's below 40 degrees, you won't find me outdoors because I'm not going to be happy. And I like to be happy when I cycle. So I totally get it for those of you who do that. But yeah, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say I knew that I wasn't getting the full experience by biking indoors like at the gym, but there are so many trainers, like indoor trainers out there that I was like, It's funny. I was like, oh, I can talk to Mashonda about this. I can talk to Yasmin about this. I can call Doc about it. But I was just like, let's get this first try under our belt
Yeah.
before we start investing a lot of money and a lot of effort, because I could have had a really bad experience and been like, nope. Oh, we're done. Got that one medal. Don't ever need to do it again. And instead I had a good experience. And then it's like, do I want to ask for things for Christmas or do I want to spend my own money? It's more like, how much do I want to invest? How much can I invest in the sport? Because I typically don't like when people say things like, running is, oh, just put your shoes on and go, or because it's race entries, it's the right shoes, it's insoles, it's if you're training potentially a coach or whatever. And the same thing that I experienced with triathlon. And I think actually I was listening to the podcast while I was training. I was listening to your podcast while I was training.
Oh,
And
shucks.
yeah, no, I'm telling you, when I was on it was a brick workout. I did a bike and a run, and I was listening. Um, and there was a guest on who was talking about how she didn't really she didn't really get a coach and all that stuff. She just made herself go out and swim. She made herself go bike. She made herself, I think her husband was also used to doing sprint tries. So he was there to be helpful. But it's like, you use what you have and you use what you can and the resources that you have. So I remember hearing that and being like, yeah, I can get through this first one with the resources that I have, and then see how much I'm going to spend the money and the time and the effort again. And because I had a good experience and because I liked what I was doing and how I felt, I was like, yeah, I can push myself back to the Olympic. And the Olympic will really be my redemption one, where it's like, I didn't finish before, I'm finishing it now. But I am actually fascinated now when I go on Instagram and see people that have like the Zwift and all these different trainers and stuff, and they're talking about like, let's meet on Swift, and I'm like, what is it? I still need to like look all these things up. I don't have an indoor trainer. I think I told one of the girls that I run with, I was like, I might just need to sit you down over coffee slash breakfast and lunch to talk me all the way through everything that I need to buy and everything that I need to do to set myself up for this Olympic for next year and beyond. But she, of course, was like, and I'm going to talk you into a half Ironman. And I was like, cool. That's how that's going to work.
Here's the deal. I just want to reiterate what you said. You can try with what you have, and you can do a few triathlons with minimal equipment. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need all the bells and the whistles. And Facebook Marketplace is a great resource. And local bike shops, who has people who are upgrading their bikes or upgrading their trainers. Uh, you don't have to have all the bells and whistles to try. And I think that's a huge misconception. So I'm glad that the podcast helped you. And I'm glad that you have friends who are doing triathlons who can also guide your experience as well. Um, wow, this is really good and a wealth of knowledge. But your friends, we have the
Mm-hmm.
saying that we said a lot. Some of my friends, I need better friends. Because your friends can peer pressure you into doing things that you don't want to do, or you want to do it, but just not right now. So don't be peer pressured to do in anything that you're not ready for. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But
I have a hard stop for next year at Olympic because I was like, I can conquer Olympic and then visually wrap my mind around Olympic times two.
yeah.
Once I can do that in my head, then I'm like, oh, okay. But I applaud them all, and they know me as like, I'm tracking you, I'll come out, I'm cheering for you. I'm always
Yeah.
like, you better, but you might not see me out there with you. and
I love it.
and we're all good about that because we're all at different levels of our fitness and what we're really interested in
Mhm.
and what we like doing. So I still have an outstanding running goal that hopefully will be achieved in the next couple of years. So that is kind of the focus, but we'll see. Yeah.
I love it. Well,
And that's
keep
the world majors. So
yes.
yeah.
Oh yes. I am here for all of that. I love it. I love it. Um, and what an amazing goal to because now you have an additional race. You got 7 you can do now to get
I actually did Sydney this year. Um
did. Will it
I
count?
yeah. No. Okay.
Okay,
So
we see we about to go down a whole okay, we'll save that for offline because we about to go down a whole nother rabbit hole, but I do want to hear that.
yes, I was gonna say it doesn't count, but as the short version of that long story is because I participated this year, I get a guaranteed entry for any time over the next 3 years. So I don't have
Nice.
to try to do the lottery thing. And that was the goal. That was the reason why I did it. Also had a great time over there. Wonderful city. Can't wait to go back. But yeah, that was part of it. Yeah.
Nice, 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 nice. Well, before we let you go, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with us. And I'm sure that this will encourage someone else to go out and try and, know that there's no time distance between how often we try or how we do this as long as we continue to try, no matter what it is. So if it's someone who's listening to this or happen to come by this and you're doing your first 5K, go out there and rock it. If it's your first 10K, your first half marathon or your first full marathon, go out and rock it. And whatever distances it is, it's the journey to whatever that's
Mhm.
really that key part. And if it's a super sprint, I'm gonna put super sprint because super sprints don't get enough love. If it's a super sprint triathlon that you're doing, or your first sprint, your first Olympic distance, your first middle distance, or your first long distance, no matter what distance it is, as long as you're going out there and you're giving it your all, you're winning, period. And for
Absolutely.
swimmers, for those of you who are doing swimming, whether you're at a swim meet or you're doing that outdoor swimming, all of it is preparation for something greater. And so I appreciate just hearing your story and learning more about your running background and seeing what's to come. And of course, I'll be tracking you along the way. With that
Thank
said, we have some rapid fire questions that I would love to um, just ask. So we're just going to get right into it. It's rapid fire. So real quick. And I got to be creative because you're a runner as well. So
Okay.
we'll see. But first up, what or who inspires you?
Oh, that's not a rapid answer. I don't have inspires me. I think my running groups, the running groups I've been exposed to, and all of the people that I met there. Um, okay, I have one. He'll probably kill me for saying it, but his name is Henry. He is active duty in the military, and he has done a marathon every month since October of last year. And
Wow.
he does it like it's nothing. And I've told other people, I'm like, I don't want to say I'm jealous. I'm not jealous. I'm inspired by the fact that he just has the energy and the passion for it. Like he just loves
Mm,
running and loves what it brings to for himself, that he just gets up and he just finds a marathon to do and he does it. And he took on the World Majors Challenge. He's done 4 out of the 6 as well. Like, but he just really goes after it. And I think he kind of makes it look effortless, which is why I'm a little jealous. But yeah, I would say him and like my running group people because they all push themselves really, really hard.
awesome. Favorite music artist?
Ooh, right now, Glorilla, 100%.
Yes.
She just gets it, like everything. E- and the thing about it is she's fun and she's young and she's cute, but if you listen to the lyrics, she literally was like y'all didn't appreciate when I was humble, so now I'm gonna be out here. And I'm like, yes, love that. Keep that energy always, ma'am. Like I love everything she's putting out. Yeah.
All right. Well, I dare ask favorite song.
Ooh, how I look.
I
Because
don't know.
everything she does with Make the Stallion is also like a million times better when she does it when they collaborate. But how I look, the chorus, we were in the car this weekend and playing it, and I just popped out like it was like how I look, ask your man, ask a friend, ask a hater,
I
ask
love
it
it.
like I love it. She's just it really I put it on and I do run faster. It's just it's a thing.
She's having a moment, and I'm here for it. Because
I'm
7
I'm
p.m. Friday just be like, it's 7
yes,
Friday. Okay,
Friday.
focus.
That
It's
whole
not even
summer,
Friday, but the whole summer seeing that song is like, yes.
she
Okay.
her that's what I said, her and Meg together the whole summer lockdown and I
Yeah.
loved every bit of it.
Yeah. Um, early morning race starts or afternoon race starts?
Early morning.
Okay.
I
Uh,
yeah, there's a story there.
okay. Favorite motivational quote or mantra?
Oh, um, mm, I oh gosh. I remember it was a run girl event and one of the girls who was participating said it and I just was like that's so profound for us just being out here having fun doing a 5K. It was um it was something about how like going through something difficult and she was like, but you just keep going. I can't think of exactly what Maya knows what she said, but I can't, I did we had to write them all down and put them up on a board and hers was like the one that stuck with me was just that like you that you can get you everybody says that you can do hard things. That wasn't it. It was something about like difficulties and being you know how to be that and go through that. But I follow the Daily Stoic um online and that is like my touchstone honestly for all things for all things that are inspiring for me.
Love it. Dream training partner, alive or historical?
Safan Hassan.
Okay.
She is she's the epitome of determination and grace. Like she is so she you could tell how hard she works, but everything she says when she's interviewed is just so humble and so real. Like you would not believe she's an elite athlete when she gets up there and says, why did I think I could do a marathon? And she said that before she won the London Marathon. And then she wins the Olympic marathon this year. And I was just like, but afterwards, her whole spirit, her whole vibe is just so graceful and so strong.
Love it. So we asked this question before we end most podcasts. It's just funny, but I don't know if you've experienced yet. So I'm just going to ask you and then I'll ask you the follow up.
Mhm.
Do you pee on the bike or do you get off and take a proper pee break? Or have you peed on the bike?
So the only thing that I've done is the sprint. I honestly couldn't tell you what happened 17 years ago, but I did not have to get off because I think I was just too nervous. I didn't have to use the bathroom. And also I'm pretty terrible about fueling, so I probably had like an empty system going in. But yeah, I would probably get off and take a proper pee break.
And have you peed in your wetsuit before?
Hmm.
Or peed in
I
tracksuit?
don't.
Because I think you said you had a wetsuit in 2007, but you
I had
don't
a
remember
wetsuit in
much.
2007, did not pee in that one. I had a tri suit this year, definitely didn't pee in that one. Albeit more scared this time, so I probably would have, but I did not. Again, it's all about fueling. If I could say one thing that after 7 years of really racing and training, I still have to get my nutrition and my fueling together. Like they're two separate things, but also I need to work on both. And before races is bad. Yeah.
Well, we do know that to be true because that's how I first met you. And I was like, you about to go out in this trail run with no water?
And you're and my exact words were, it's just a
Yeah,
10K,
right.
6 miles. Okay. And and your face was so funny because you were like, okay.
Okay.
Like that's how you feel.
Hey, everybody is different. No judgment. I mean, look, there's no judgment. With that said, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to bring to this audience Miss Koryn High, uh, uh, Riot's own. She's now a triathlete, and we're excited to see how she continues to grow in the sport. With that said, whenever you try beginner's luck, you truly always win. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines. Be sure to like, share, and follow this podcast. We're on all major podcast platforms. We're on YouTube at Try Beginner's Luck, as well as on Instagram at Try Beginner's Luck. All right, y'all, we are out. Peace. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.